Hey folks, Colleen Bingham Solis here, and welcome to my YouTube channel. Okay. Hey folks, Colleen Bingham Solis here. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Herb Nerd. Useful herbal and product development information is being uploaded here all the time, so if you are new, please consider subscribing. This channel is affiliated with our online platform, herbnerd.com, an online school for herbalism and natural product development where we are bridging the traditions, intuition, and science of herbal studies for the modern healer and apothecary. Check it out. Today's project is making a lion's mane tincture. So the reason I chose to do this is because making mushroom medicine is a little bit more complex than making just a general plant-based herbal extract. Mushrooms contain both alcohol-soluble and hot water-soluble constituents. So lion's mane is a really specifically wonderful plant. This is the fruiting body of lion's mane. Lion's mane's scientific binomial name is Hericium erinaceus. So one of the main reasons herbal practitioners love making mushroom medicine is because of this wonderful complex polysaccharide content. So polysaccharides are extracted with hot water, which means that there is a two-step process to making this extract, because there's also some really incredible neuroprotective and neurotropic constituents in lion's mane that are alcohol or lipid soluble. So we'll be extracting those first. So neurotropic herbs oftentimes have that ability to cross that blood-brain barrier. And what's so specific about lion's mane, I mean, you look at it and already it looks like brains. And it's really supportive to the brain. So the actions that we talk about for brain health for lion's mane are that they are neuroprotective, so they help to protect potentially degrading cells in the brain, and neurotropic, which is really good for helping with focus and cognition of the brain. There's a lot of really great modern studies that are being conducted on lion's mane, and specifically conducted with folks who are suffering or have been diagnosed with dementia, Alzheimer's disease, and even schizophrenia. And it is showing that by eating or taking the extract of lion's mane daily as a tonic, that some of this degradation is actually slowing down, and that's for folks that have suffered from cognitive impairment due to these diagnoses, that they're actually finding that the lion's mane is helping them to restore some of these lost functions of the brain. Then there's also the immunomodulating piece. So like I mentioned before, those polysaccharides that this plant is so rich in are wonderful at helping to nourish the immune system. So an immunomodulator, unlike an immune stimulant, is something that's tonic that you can take daily that helps to feed your immune system and strengthen it, giving it the tools that it needs so that when the immune system is compromised, because you've been taking your immunomodulating herbs like your lion's mane extract, you will have a stronger immune system and it will react better and more efficiently to whatever invading pathogen is entering your body. Some other actions is that it's found that lion's mane is a great anti-inflammatory as well as anti-tumor. And we won't get into those as much, but another really cool side note is that it's considered a great vulnerary specific to mucous membranes and specific to the eyes. Okay, so that's some indications for lion's mane and why we love it so much. And so as a medicine maker, I always like a challenge, and I think that mushroom extracts are a little bit more challenging than your everyday tincture extract, because of the fact that you want to isolate those alcohol-soluble constituents as well as those hot water-soluble constituents. So we're going to be doing this as a two-step medicine-making project. We're going to start today by breaking down our plant material and adding it to our alcohol, and we're going to start extracting the alcohol-soluble constituents today. That process takes about 2 weeks. Then we're going to strain out the plant material, and we're going to put that plant material in a pot of water, and we're going to simmer it, and that's going to extract those polysaccharides. So two-step process filmed over the course of 2 weeks, and let's get started on part 1. So here we have fresh lion's mane. I grew this from a kit that I got from this really cool mushroom company called Nearby Naturals. And this was just my first growth. So, but I got the kit, I sprayed it with water every day, cut some holes, and the mycelium just really blossomed into these beautiful fruiting bodies. So the mycelium is what grows underground. It's basically the root system of the plant. And then this is the fruiting body. This is the reproductive organ that releases the spores of the mushroom so that it can reproduce. And this is what we generally eat. And lion's mane has been traditionally eaten for centuries. It's a wonderful, super nutritive mushroom that tastes really great. So definitely, if you can get your hands on some fresh lion's mane, I would highly recommend trying it out in cuisine, as well as making your mushroom extract. So because we're doing this fresh, we're going to be using a ratio of 1 to 2. So we're going to weigh our plant material to figure out that one side of the ratio, and then we're going to multiply by 2 to figure out how much alcohol we need to extract. So you want to use a high proof alcohol when extracting fresh mushrooms, because there is so much water content in this mushroom that it's going to be diluting my menstruum quite a bit. And then when we revisit this extract in 2 weeks and we create a decoction or simmer our mark or our mushroom in hot water, we're then going to be adding that hot water back into our extract as well. So you're going to use 100% strength alcohol, and you're going to make your medicine that way. So here we go. Put the bowl on the scale and weigh my mushrooms. So my total gram weight is 580 grams, 580. 580 grams of mushroom times 2 equals 1,160 milliliters of alcohol. And so I've already measured that out over here, filled this up to the top, and now comes the fun part. We need to process our mushrooms. So I'm really a big fan of breaking things down as much as I possibly can. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to chop them first, and then I'm going to put them into my Vitamix, where I'll be grinding them up with the solvent to break them down even further. Basically, the more you break down the cell walls of the plant, the more the alcohol solvent will be able to penetrate the plant and pull out the constituents. Smelling pretty shroomy in here. It's kind of awesome. All right, so I know my Vitamix pretty well, and you cannot fit all of this in here at once to break it down. So I'm going to be doing this in stages. Okay, so I've got my solvent here with my mushroom, and I'm going to grind this down even further. So round one, check out this amazing slush that I've created here. That tells me that I'm making good medicine. Beautiful. Super slushy. Okay. Nice, just fits. So I'm going to create a label here. Also, really important to keep records of these things. I'm actually using this to make this extract goes into a tincture formula that I use for a client of mine who is trying to prevent the onset of dementia. So the more you have a mathematical system and really good note keeping, the more likely you will be able to repeat your outcomes over and over and over again. Okay, so this is phase 1. You're going to shake this every day for 2 weeks, okay? So we're pretty much rounding the end of phase 1 of making this mushroom extract. And when we come back, we're going to be straining this out. We're going to use a hydrometer to figure out what our final alcohol percent is after it's been diluted by the water content in the mushroom. And then we're going to be working from there to add back in our decocted mushroom tea to add our polysaccharides into this extract. So stay with me and we'll be right back. All right, we're back. It's actually been over a month since I first extracted this mushroom tincture, and that's mostly because I've been busy growing something else in the meantime. So I'm 7 months pregnant now, and my mushroom tincture, I was shaking it every day, but it was shelved for a little bit. But now we're back, and I have pressed my lion's mane tincture, and we're going to talk about what we do with it next. So here it is. We've already seen what this looked like when we started out, and this is actually very impressive to me. I mean, when I had created the original extract, it had pretty much filled this jar. With this mushroom, it actually was amazing how much volume I got to keep from pressing it. A lot of that has to do with the fact that mushrooms are so filled with water. They're a lot like humans in that way. We're just mostly made of water. So the magic of mushrooms just continues to amaze me. I actually increased my volume by a lot. So my original numbers, if you'll remember, were that I started out with 1,160 milliliters of my menstruum, which was 95% alcohol, right? And then, or we call that 100% in herbal world. Then I had the weight of the mushroom, and the weight of the mushroom was 580 grams. Okay, so I pressed this the other day, just yesterday, and my mushrooms had been reduced in weight significantly. They only weighed 162 grams. So they went from 580 grams to 162 grams. So all that extra weight ended up going into the tincture. So remember how we talked about how tinctures get super diluted when you're using fresh plant material? That's what happened here. I actually gained a ton of water weight or water volume to my final pressed tincture that I wouldn't have had if I'd used dry plant material. So we want to figure out how much it diluted my alcohol, because that has a lot to do with how much of our decoction we're going to be putting back into this tincture. I've taken some pictures of what this looked like when I had it all flattened out and pancaked that we'll take a look at now. So the very small weight of mushroom mass that was left after pressing this got put in this pot with water, and it's just been sitting here simmering for over an hour. So we want to do that because we want to introduce heat, because those immune supportive, immune nourishing polysaccharides are extracted best with hot water decoction. So that's going over here for now. We're going to come back to that later. We're just going to let it decoct for now. It smells really nice in here. It's got that kind of brothy, aromatic smell to it. And so I'm just keeping an eye on it. You want it to just be on a gentle simmer. You definitely don't want to overheat your decoction. And again, it's just the water and the mark. And what's fun is that I pressed this out, and you'll see from the pictures that it became these flat pancakes, and it only weighed 162 grams. But when I added it back to the water and I did a little immersion blender action to break up those pancakes and open them up, I now have this really nice, thick, soupy mushroom paste. So I feel really great about that, because that means that my water is totally saturated with this mushroom material, and it's doing a great job of pulling all of those polysaccharides from the mushroom. Okay, so while that's decocting, let's talk about some math, because as one reason I wanted to present this video to you is because I feel like there's a lot of head scratching and confusion around double extractions, because there is math involved, and this is a more advanced herbal medicine making concept and process. So let's see if we can figure this out together. I'm gonna pull up a chair. Okay, so first and foremost, what you want to do is you want to take your pressed tincture. You want to take your pressed tincture, and you want to figure out what your final percent alcohol strength is. Because remember, we started with 100% alcohol, and it's been diluted quite significantly by the water content in the mushroom. So the way you do this is you get a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder and a hydrometer. These are easy to find if you look on brewing sites, and I'm also considering carrying them at herbnerd.com. So definitely check out our herb store to see if I've figured out how to do that. All right, so we're gonna fill this up to the top. This is a 100 milliliter graduated cylinder. I'm gonna fill it all the way to the 100 milliliter mark, like so. And then I am going to drop in my hydrometer. And that's going to float right where the alcohol strength is for this tincture. So as you can see right here, there's 70, 80, 90. So 65% is just, it's like 64% is where that hydrometer is resting at the top of the liquid. The mushroom water has diluted our menstruum to 65%. Super important number to know, because everything that we're going to do from here on out with our decoction and adding it back into our tincture really relies on this number. That is the one measurement that's most important. And we've done it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to need to do now that we have that crucial number, our 65% alcohol strength of our tincture, is we need to figure out what we want our final alcohol strength to be. Basically, if you have too much alcohol in your tincture after you've added your decoction, the polysaccharides will do what's called precipitate. They will precipitate out of solution because there's so much alcohol that they can't stay in solution, basically. So they'll rain down to the bottom. That's totally fine. If you've made a tincture like that before, don't worry. You just have to remember to shake your tincture before you take it every time so that you're grabbing up those polysaccharides with each of your doses. But there is a way to keep your percent alcohol low enough with your decoction included that hopefully your polysaccharides are staying in solution and floating around in the whole volume of your tincture and not just hanging out at the bottom. So what I'm going to teach you now is a math equation that I haven't actually really heard from any of my herbal friends. I learned this from my husband, who's an engineer. It's called the dilution equation, and I think it's just really important for everyone to know how to do this. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the 2% that we know. We know the percent of ethanol that's in our tincture right now, and then we know what we want for our final percent alcohol content. I haven't told you that yet. What we want is around 30 to 35%. That way we know that we've introduced the polysaccharides and that there's enough water in there that they're going to stay in solution. So we're going to use this dilution equation to figure out how much volume of decoction goes into this tincture to achieve 30 to 35% final alcohol. Okay, I hope you're following me. Definitely ask questions in the comments if you have any. I would happily support you in this process. All right, so let's take a look at the equation. All right, so here is what we know. And here's what we need to know for this equation. So actually, this tincture, as you can see, I pressed out 1,500 milliliters of tincture. I do not want to use this entire thing for what we're doing today. That's just going to make basically a gallon of final product. I'm going to keep the numbers smaller than that so that we are all following. So I'm actually going to just do half of this today. So we're going to do, so we know the volume of our current tincture. So our tincture volume, we're going to do 750 milliliters. So we know that number. That's going to be important. This is our current volume that we're going to be using of our tincture. Okay, the next number that we know is the current percent ethanol, ETOH, or alcohol. Our current percent ethanol alcohol is 65%. We just figured that out using the hydrometer. The goal percent ethanol, if you'll remember, is 30 to 35%. Okay, so these are the numbers we need, and here is how the equation works. This is the dilution equation. Okay, looks like this. You've got your ETOH percent 1 over ETOH percent 2. Multiply that by your volume. And this is the current volume. And then you subtract your volume. And this will tell you how much decoction to add. Okay, so let's figure that out. We have our numbers here. We've got our current volume, or sorry, our current alcohol content is 65% over, let's just do 30%. multiply that by our volume, which is here, 750 milliliters. So that all goes in parentheses. So we figure out that number first, then we subtract 750 milliliters. Okay, let's figure this out. On your calculator, 65 over 30 equals 2.166666 times 750 equals 1624. Subtract 750. You end up with, if we round, 875 milliliters decoction. Now we'll use our hydrometer again after we've combined these two to check that, to see if we've gotten to our desired volume. But that is the dilution equation, and that is how you figure out how to get your desired percent alcohol strength in the end by adding back in your decoction. As I was doing that equation, I kind of threw a curveball at you. I'm not going to be doing the entire tincture. I would have ended up with almost a gallon of tincture. So I just felt, for ease sake, that I'm going to only do half of this now. So I'm going to set this aside for now, and then when I finally do run out, I can come back to this, and then when I do want to make more, I can just decoct fresh lion's mane mushroom. That's totally fine too. It's another way to do the decoction process, is to use fresh plant material as opposed to the mark that you've pressed from your tincture. And we now need to start straining our decoction so that we can add it back into here. So as we just did the math on this, we're going to need 875 milliliters of this, so we got to start straining. So I'm going to take my decoction here and fill that up. And you might find that your decoction is a little harder to strain than your tincture was, because polysaccharides can be really thick, mucilaginous wonders, and so they hold and retain moisture a lot better than alcohol does. So I felt like it was actually really easy to press my original tincture to separate out the mushroom material, but I have a feeling that with this phase it's going to be a longer process to strain out the liquid. So we're going to have to do some time lapses here. Yeah, this is going very slowly. Well, as I suspected, the mushroom is really retaining the water. A lot different to press this than it was to press the original tincture. So I'm still not even at 4 ounces. It's just dripping really slowly. So I'm going to transfer this over to my big hydraulic press. There's a lot of kind of air tied up in here too, air and water. And so when you go to press it, you have to go slow, because otherwise you can pop the bag. I have done this before. I've done it with elderberries and they've exploded all over the lab. So you really want to go slow. There we go. Much faster. Okay, we are now ready to combine all of our ingredients. So 875, so I'll combine those. Okay, and then here's the moment of truth. And again, there's a lot of chemistry happening here. The polysaccharides are dancing around, and the goal is that the polysaccharides stay in solution. So you want this to stay cloudy. If it goes clear, it means it's too high in alcohol and your polysaccharides are precipitating to the bottom of your container. I love it's a little bit thick, which is really fun. All right, so now that I've mixed that, I'm gonna, just for curiosity's sake and for good record keeping, but actually, yeah, looks good. It says it's at 30%. It's like magic, but it isn't magic because it's math and science, and we got the desired outcome because we took the proper steps. That's the kind of herbal medicine making that I love. This is what Herb Nerd is all about. That's why I really wanted to do a mushroom double extraction video, so you could all see how geeky you can get, how nerdy you can get with your extracts. Okay, so we'll pour all this back together. Beautiful. Now we just have to figure out what we're going to store this in. Just a little bit of math real quick to figure out how much my total volume is so that I know what size receptacle to put this in. So we had 750 milliliters of our tincture, and we added 875 milliliters of our decoction. So our total milliliters is 1,625. I'm going to divide that by 30 to figure out how many ounces that is. That's 54 ounces. So I'm going to need to use a ½ gallon jar to store this. So I'm going to go get one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer this over to a quart jar for storage. Until next time, mushroom tincture. Ta-da! And now I can fit this into, so I said that we're at 54 ounces. This is a 62 ounce container. Ooh, oh my gosh, this is so fun. It's like thickening up as it cools. Wow, this is really cool. It's getting gelatinous. I don't think you could see that, but it looked really cool. All right, so that fits in there really nicely. We can create a new label for that one. So one thing I should mention with this, because it's thickening the way it is that it might be a little bit tricky to take this with a dropper. Sometimes they clog up a dropper, or if you're combining this with other tinctures into a compound formula, it will potentially make the polysaccharides precipitate out, so keep an eye out for that. Also, I've found with product development, with folks that I've created sublingual sprays for, things like that, if you're adding mushroom tincture to those types of products, be really careful because they can clog up your device like a spray top really easily. So it's really wonderful to have mushrooms in your creations, but the moment you start adding more alcohol to this, you'll end up having that precipitation. But it's okay, like I said, shake well and you should be fine. So we're gonna label this, considering bottling this up in some ½ ounce jars and making it available on my website, herbnerd.com. We have a little herb shop there, so if you're curious about trying out how this turned out, head on over there and order yourself a 1 ounce bottle and take your mushrooms and take them daily. They are so good for you, so healing. Mushroom medicine has been used for centuries. I think that's why we're such a strong human race today. It's because mushrooms have been co-evolving with us for so long. So power to the mushrooms. Thank you so much for joining me for this how-to video on how to double extract lion's mane mushroom. Again, if you have any questions, definitely add them to the comments section and I will get back to you as soon as I can. Please check out herbnerd.com for more videos and courses, and also please subscribe to this channel. All right, see you next time.